Welcome to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live, where we offer the news, information, traffic, weather, sports, and entertainment our commercial drivers want and need. I'm your host, Shelley Johnson, along with Tom Kirk. Good sleep is something that can be difficult for drivers to get on a regular basis, depending on their schedules. The National Sleep Foundation is holding Drowsy Driving Prevention Week this month. They have tips to get a better night's sleep and good information on the subject. We decided to reach out to Dr. Joseph Drowsy. He's the Vice President of Research and Scientific Affairs at the National Sleep Foundation to learn more about how to get a good night's sleep and avoid drowsy driving. His educational background is in clinical health psychology, focusing on behavioral sleep medicine. Joe earned his doctoral degree from the University of Florida with advanced training in behavioral sleep medicine, geropsychology, and methodology and statistics. Welcome, Dr. Joe. Thank you for being with us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Shelley and Tom. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I thought we could start with, what is Drowsy Driving Prevention Week all about?
Excellent. I think that's the perfect place to start. Drowsy Driving Prevention Week is a week started by the National Sleep Foundation. This week it's November 6th through 13th, and it's all about raising awareness for the very relatable and preventable occurrence of driving while we're a little bit, more drowsy than perhaps we should be. Our campaign this year is, our theme is Sleep First, Drive Alert. We essentially want every driver to have the sleep they need before they get behind the wheel of any vehicle. It's our 15th year, if you can believe it or not, running this annual campaign. And together we hope to prevent thousands of car and truck accidents that are caused by drowsy driving. We know the best estimates out there are that 6,400 fatalities in the United States are a result of drowsy driving. And specific to truck drivers, this is an at-risk group of individuals, long haul drivers especially, with estimates suggesting that 15% of all heavy truck crashes involve fatigue or sleep-deprived driving. So it's a real problem.
So what are some of the things that people can do? First of all, do people always know if they're tired?
I actually don't think they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes people might confuse tiredness and fatigue with boredom, especially on long drives.
Yeah.
I think that's a big problem. We know that there are common signs, warning signs or cues that you might be tired, that you might be fatigued. But again, warning or, yawning, blinking. Sometimes these are things of like, oh, it's just, I'm out here, the landscape's rather dull and I'm just driving and I'm just bored. Maybe I need to just roll down the window or change the radio station. That's not always the case. Your body might actually be sending you a signal that you're perhaps too drowsy to drive safely.
Isn't there also a thing called micro sleep? People can actually maybe fall asleep while they're driving and not even realize it for just, seconds or something like that.
Micro sleeps are a really interesting phenomenon. They happen, they can happen anytime. Most of the time, as you noticed, or as you noted, that when we fall into these really kind of shallow or superficial levels of sleep, stage one sleep is what we call it. If you wake someone up actually from stage one sleep, the majority of the time that person will report that they were in fact not sleeping, that they were awake the whole time and they were aware of everything around them. When we know, we have the measurements from brainwaves that they were actually asleep. And these micro sleeps can just kind of creep in in times when you're in these mundane tasks, when you're fatigued, when you're tired. So certainly that's a problem because again, we know that you are not aware and responsive to your surroundings when you're having micro sleeps.
I find it very bizarre that can happen when you're performing a task and you continue to perform the task.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. I think with driving in particular, driving is so routinized, right? It becomes reflexive to a degree. And especially, I think, if you're in a situation where you're going at a steady speed, at a certain point, you don't, you don't need to actively be doing something. If you were to have a micro sleep and come right back to, your truck's still moving.
Mm-hmm.
The road didn't, bend too much. You're still in your lane. You might be hitting the little rumble strip or something, but but it's not one of those instances where if your gas pedal, feels any change in pressure that your truck just stops.
Right. Tom, what have you heard or what have you experienced in terms of sleep issues on the road?
I think if we're completely honest, I think any driver that has over a certain number of years of experience has probably realized at least once in their driving career, not more than once, they've probably driven too tired. And a lot of times it's you think you're feeling good. You finally get stopped for the night. You set the brakes, you get back into that spot, or you're maybe so tired you're having a little trouble backing into the spot, and you get that brake set, and all of a sudden that the fatigue or exhaustion just hits you like a sledgehammer, and you're like, oh boy, I'm probably pushing a little bit too hard. And I think most drivers have experienced that at least a few times in their career. And sometimes it's because of a situation where, you think you're feeling good or pretty good, and all of a sudden you might not have an option to stop for a couple of hours because of the distance between truck stops, for example, or the fact that nowadays truck parking has become such a problem. You think you're going to find parking, and you're going to have to keep pushing it on. So I think that is something that's very real. And I think a lot of the more experienced drivers even feel to some extent that the current hours of services, where it was theoretically supposed to help prevent fatigue, a lot of the drivers are starting to say, we think it's actually contributing it because of the truck parking shortage and a whole bunch of other things. I mean, we can go down a whole long rabbit hole here, Shelley.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a problem that I think almost every driver does recognize that's out there. And the thing is, the truck stops and people in the industry realize it too. Because if you look at the truck stops, there's all kinds of energy drinks, energy squares, energy gums, etc., which I think brings up a really great question, Dr. Joe. Do they work?
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. And Tom, I want to say that you just said so many things that I want to touch on. And, in my own sleep deprived state, I have two young children. I know I'm going to forget to follow up on a lot of it, but there was so many important things that you mentioned. I will follow up on the energy drink, energy gums, energy bars, all these sorts of things. They can work in the short term. So at National Sleep Foundation, we think if you are feeling fatigued and tired behind the wheel and you're noticing any of the warning signs, if you can have something with some caffeine or sugar in it could be that thing that maybe gets you to the place where you can safely park. But what I like to do and how I like to think about energy bars, energy drinks, all these supplements is that they're Band-Aids, right? They're Band-Aids for a problem. And what's better than a Band-Aid is not getting cut in the first place. And when we're talking about drowsy driving, we're talking about not getting sleep deprived, not getting drowsy in the first place behind the wheel, getting the sleep that you need so that you don't need that Band-Aid. And I know the reality of the situation in the industry might work against that, but I just, as the sleep person, as the representative from the National Sleep Foundation, I just need to put it out there and say that sleep is much better than an energy drink any day of the week.
Probably there's an ideal time to sleep. That's kind of a challenge, though, for drivers.
Oh, I could imagine. And I can tell you that, yes, our bodies naturally want to work in unison with the environment and the world around us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our internal clocks want to be awake when it's bright, and they want to be asleep when it's dark. So if you work in a profession that requires the opposite of that, or rotating or extended shifts, all of these are risk factors for drowsy driving, for the consequences of drowsy driving, that being getting in crashes and things of this nature. But yeah, our bodies want to sleep at night when it's dark. They want to be awake during the day generally. When we work against that, we have to be even, doubly attentive to all the little cues and all the tips and tricks to help people sleep better.
How do people sleep when they're working against Mother Nature, essentially?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's tough because you're working against Mother Nature and your own natural biology. But there are certain things that you can do. We always like to recommend that people are consistent in their sleep schedules. And this is probably something and maybe an area where, again, in the trucking industry, just it doesn't work that way. But if your schedule to work evening hours and you have to sleep during the day, on your days off when you're not working, you should maintain that same schedule so that your body's not flipping back and forth, right? The more consistent you are in your sleep routine and your sleep behaviors, the more likely you are to obtain that good quality and quantity of sleep that your body needs. Sometimes when you're talking about daytime sleep, this means the darkest blackout shades and curtains and window visors that you could find, or the eye masks and the sound machines and the fans running. All these things that try to almost convince your body that it's nighttime and to that way consistently across days. It is very hard to go from sleeping at night one night and sleeping in the day the next night and then flipping back and forth. That's a real trick and a real struggle on someone's body.
It really is. I worked a swing shift years ago, and it was miserable.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm going to jump in here real quick, Shirley, because I know we've got a break coming up soon, is Doc, welcome to trucking. It's not unusual, particularly for guys at the refrigerated side, temperature controlled side, they'll start off their week maybe working days. Then all of a sudden something midweek comes up. Now they got to, they'll be up for a few hours, find out they have to go back to bed to drive all night. And they might switch 2-3 times or, during the week between nights and days in order to make schedules work. Now, theoretically, everybody tries to stay on a semi-consistent schedule, but unfortunately freight in situations don't always cooperate, which does cause a lot of that rotating back and forth. And that's a very real problem that I don't think it's talked about enough when we talk about fatigue and trucking, is that there's a lot of schedule things that are beyond the driver's control. The company's like saying, hey, you expect to do this. And it seems like every couple of years, you hear a news story, whether it's on YouTube or in the trucking media or even the other media, about a driver who basically says they were exhausted and the company was trying to force them to drive, like by sending police to do a welfare check on them or things of that nature, and interrupting, them trying to get a little, a nap, basically. So these are very real things that we deal with. And hopefully with, some of what we can do today with talking to National Sleep Foundations, make you guys aware of some of what we see out here on the road, and maybe start a dialogue of working together to make the road safer and more restful for everyone.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, our core promise to the public at the National Sleep Foundation is to help anyone and everyone be their best slept self. And certainly commercial drivers are included in anyone and everyone. I will say that, I know we're in the radio, but if there was a camera here, you would have seen me kind of shaking my head in sympathy and empathy when you were talking about having to shift back and forth between day and night sleeping across the week. That's just an incredibly difficult thing to do. And if you have to do that, I'll say that everything else you should try to make consistent, right? So even your pre-sleep routines, whether it's happening during the day or night, but just trying to give your body those cues that, okay, it is time and we are preparing for sleep now. And so if you're going to have a 15-minute wind down routine or a 30-minute wind down routine, both of which are completely appropriate, do that every day consistently, whether it's at night or in the evening. But again, just trying to set yourself up for success and trying to have your environment as unsleep promoting as it might be, trying to do these little tips and tricks to create a safe sleep environment, something that helps sleep come about naturally, as opposed to fighting for sleep. Anytime you work hard to sleep, you're actually working against sleep.
Makes sense. We have to go to break here, Dr. Joe. I know that you've got a lot of tips and more information that will really help drivers, and I'm sure they've got a lot of questions too. We're talking to Dr. Joseph Drowsy. He's the Vice President of Research and Scientific Affairs at the National Sleep Foundation. It's regarding their Drowsy Driving Prevention Week. He's got some tips we're going to be going over. Definitely stay tuned right here on the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. The trucking industry keeps America running thanks to the 3.36 million professional truck drivers who deliver everyday goods to 80% of American communities who rely on trucking for that last mile. The industry represents a diverse group with nearly half of drivers at 42% as minorities. Trucking Moves America Forward, or TMAF, educates the public on the essentiality of trucking by telling the story of trucking and its positive impact on our economy, communities, and lives. Learn how you can join the industry movement by visiting truckingmovesamerica.com. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kirk. We're talking to Dr. Joseph Drowsy. He's the Vice President of Research and Scientific Affairs at the National Sleep Foundation. He's been giving us a really good foundation on sleep and why it's so important. Dr. Joe, do you have some tips that can help with getting a good night's sleep and avoiding drowsy driving?
I do. And before we get to the specific tips, first I would like to know, what we should be aiming for in general. Because again, prevention is much better than a cure in my book. So at the National Sleep Foundation, we have consensus guidelines or recommendations about how much sleep everyone should be getting on a nightly basis. We think that the average adult should be getting between 7 to 9 hours. There are going to be people on the fringes, but between 7 to 9 hours allows people to function very well during the day. Older adults, that drops a little to 7 to 8 hours. And any teens who might be listening, or parents of teens, that is, perhaps 8 to 10 hours. So their sleep need is much greater than the general average adult. So this is what we should be aiming for. And again, with the idea that prevention is better than a cure, if you can get that before a drive, obviously you're going to do a big service towards preventing drowsy driving. Having said all that, set the stage, the National Sleep Foundation has a framework. We like to call it the best slept self, which is the idea that it's you can be a renewed you after taking 3 small steps during the day and 3 small steps in the evening that perhaps can make a huge difference for your nighttime sleep. These, I'm going to preface this by, are general sleep tips. So I'll go ahead and go through them quickly. Some may or may not apply specifically to the trucking industry, but there's probably some nuggets in there, and then we could get into a couple of tips and tricks that we think maybe are a little bit more specific to trucking in general.
Sounds good.
So when we start thinking about being your best slept self, we have these daytime tips. Again, 3 small actionable items, things like getting bright light exposure during the day, ideally outdoor natural light, but if not, indoor light suffices. Getting some regular physical activity, 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week sort of thing, and eating your meals at a consistent time each day. These 3 small tips, we believe, help people sleep better at night. So when I'm thinking about maybe the truck driving industry, bright light, I think a lot of people who drive during the day are already getting this exposure. The physical activity and eating consistent meal times are probably things that people could engage in to try to improve nighttime sleep, and could be things that people haven't really thought of, especially eating meals at the same time every day. Eating meals, just like light exposure and sleeping at night and being awake during the day, these are all things that help strengthen your body's internal clock. So it knows what to expect, when to expect it, and can actually, be associated with you sleeping on a nice, regular, consistent basis. So those are nice daytime tips. Some nighttime tips. We want people to avoid heavy meals, nicotine, caffeine, alcohol before bed. These are things that do not help your sleep. They negatively impact your sleep. We want people to use a consistent, relaxing wind down routine for bed. Go to bed at about the same time each night. We already discussed how that might not be an option for some people in the industry, but having that consistent routine, whether it's at night, during the day, or rotates, is something that could happen. And we want everyone, and this one is making me smile a little bit because of some of the conversations we have had during the break, but we want everyone, and I'm using this in quotes here, bedroom environment to be conducive to sleep, right? So we want it to be dark, cool, and quiet. And I know that this can be a challenge, but maybe we could talk about ways that that we can overcome some of these challenges to help people in the industry create an environment that might mimic that, might be dark, might be cool, might be quiet.
What are some of the challenges, Tom, that you can see could interfere with some of that?
Well, let's just start off. If you're in a team environment, where the truck's almost always moving, you obviously do the cool by doing that. There's some tricks you can do for the dark, which we'll get into. But the quiet's a challenge because you're going to have the sound of the engine or the APU making noises, but you're also going to have the bouncing of going down the road. And there's nothing quite like being sleeping, going through the state of Tennessee, going around the 840 loop around Nashville, and waking up to realize you're weightless just before you crash back into the bed because the bump threw you up about a foot and a half into the air. And you literally wake up and what sunk. There's, like I said, nothing quite like waking up to that feeling. So that's a challenge, but that's something that more teams face. But still, once again, as a driver at a truck stop, you could have trucks idling next to you. Your truck might be idling to maintain temperature, any one of a number of things, air horns blowing, backup alarms. But a couple of things that I have found that works, let's start off with going dark. There's different types of curtains you can get for your truck, but a simple thing that I've started doing in my truck that was a tip from another driver, I basically got me a broom handle and some of those blackout curtains from Walmart, and I lowered the top bunk, stuck that broom handle and basically strapped it to the seatbelt holders on that top bunk, and then hung the curtains from the broom handle. So I now have a second set of curtains in addition to the curtains to go to the front of the truck. So if for some reason, if you have a co-driver, they have to open up the curtains and you're the one that's doing the day sleeping, that does reduce some of the light disturbance. But that's a way that helps a little bit more with that. But the other thing that I have recently discovered is they're selling these eye masks now that you can find on Amazon. And some of them are super effective at blacking out light. Like if you put it on and fit it properly, you can open your eyes and it's like pitch black. You'll think it's the middle of the night. But they also have Bluetooth headphones in there. So you can listen to music or white noise or whatever it is you find that's relaxing to you. And I know every night when I go to sleep, particularly if the truck's going down the road, and even I found that when I'm parked for the weekend in a hotel room, that makes a huge difference to help me to relax and go to sleep. And some nights I can fall asleep, no problem without it. But a lot of nights it's just like my mind wants to keep racing. But as soon as it hears that music or whatever it gets used to, it's like my mind goes, okay, time to go in the park or neutral or however you want to phrase it and relax. But if it doesn't hear whatever that is, it's almost like my mind thinks it has permission to keep on thinking about stuff that's going on during the day or at home or during the week or wherever. So for me, that's stuff that I found effective, but it goes along with a lot of what you're saying. It's just the trucker adaptions to make it work on the road.
Yeah, I was actually going to first call you Tom MacGyver for your broom handle and curtain. I like that. And then the other thing that I was going to mention is that I think what you did is gave a perfect example and evidence how a consistent routine really lets your body know that it is time to sleep, right? If you don't do this certain thing with your headphones, and if it doesn't hear the sound of your white noise or whatever it is that you're playing, the music that you're playing, your mind's racing and it doesn't know it's time to go to bed. But when you have it on, it's a cue for your body, and your body says, now it's time. And it sounds like you've done it consistently enough that you have the routine down and your body just comes to expect sleep at that time. So I think that's wonderful. The only thing I'm going to caution is make sure you turn off alerts on your phone. You don't want to be woken up by a phone call or something in your Bluetooth headset, right?
Oh, and that is the one thing that I have discovered with, and I'm a huge believer in do not disturb mode, but the bad thing I've discovered about some of these cheaper headsets is even in do not disturb mode, occasionally I'll hear a call from, and it starts bringing a phone number. And I'm like, really? Because even though the phone itself is not ringing, the Bluetooth headphones decide because of the programming, it wants to do it. So that is the one drawback maybe to that. But that is and I cannot tell you how many drivers that I know who are good friends of mine who I didn't know if they were sleeping or whatever. And I called them because they normally would be awake. And I ended up waking up and I'm like, why don't you put your phone on do not disturb mode? Do not disturb mode has become my best friend.
Yeah, no, I believe it. I think another thing that kind of jumped out to me about your story is besides the routine and having that cue for sleep is the idea of trial and error. What works for you, Tom, might not work for everyone else, right? It's the idea of figuring it out for yourself. You might like white noise. Someone else might like music. I tend to try to tell people to stay away from music because yeah, you just never know what that next song might be, or some association you might have with a melody, or it's
Yeah.
it could
Yeah.
change. Your mind it can wake up to it.
Yeah.
So
I want to
why
get up and boogie if it's a certain type of music. So.
Well,
right, right. Nice thing is it doesn't sound like there's enough room in the truck for you to get up and boogie.
Right.
it's possible, but you boogie at your own risk.
Yeah.
Especially if you're of extended girth like myself, it's definitely boogie at your own risk.
I gotcha.
But one of the things that I've done is you've probably heard of some of that ASMR stuff. There's the people who do these elaborate ASMR role plays, whether it's like a massage or whatever it's supposed to be. And I found for me that tends to work because it's kind of almost like a guided meditation or relaxation exercise. They talk quietly. There's some people I've learned I can't listen to because some of the sounds they'll sometimes do is too distracting for me. But at the same token, I found that works. But that's something, like I said, I've been tweaking over the last number of years. What's the most effective types of things like that for the play? But like I said, it's almost become a habit. And something else that I do, and I did it for a different set of reasons. I tend to wear socks in bed of the night, compression socks, because that can sometimes, help with certain circulation issues that drivers deal with. But if I take my socks off now, it feels weird. It's like I have to have my socks on. It's just one of those little things you don't think about, but if you change that routine, it can definitely affect how you sleep.
Well, yeah. I mean, again, nice little nuggets in there. Having socks on, having your feet warm is actually a nice little trick to help cue your body that it is time to sleep. And about the whole relaxation thing, I often try to steer people towards simple breathing techniques because then you don't have to worry about it stopping, right? Sometimes people get frustrated or it raises the anxiety when they know it's coming to an end, a guided sort of thing, and they're not there yet. But if you just take a breath and hold it for a certain count and let it out and kind of do this repetitive thing in regard to that, you could do it on your own and it doesn't run out and it's still calming and draws attention to your breath and can help you hit this level of relaxation that can promote sleep.
And some of the ones I have found that last anywhere from an hour to 3 hours long. So if I haven't fallen asleep in 3 hours, I think I have a bigger set of problems personally. But but I understand what you're saying. Because if it is something that's short, like you said, like 15, 20 minutes, there are times I'll be almost asleep and then all of a sudden I find myself waking up because it stopped a little bit too soon.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I found. I need to make sure I pick longer ones. But that's what I'm saying is as I've done this more, I found what works for me. But I also have other friends who've tried some of the stuff that I do, and it doesn't work for them, or maybe they have to change it a little bit. But that's one thing that drivers do tend to do a lot is exchange some of these tips and tricks at different in different conversations, because it's one thing we all realize out here how hard it can be to get a good night's sleep.
Yeah. And something I'd follow up with on that too is that I think it's important not to simply try something once and give up on it, right? Relaxation, whether it's breathing, whether it's just thinking nice, relaxing thoughts, all of these things are things that take practice. It's a little bit of a skill. If you're not used to it and you do it one night and you didn't notice that your sleep gets any better, again, remember, going back to what I said earlier, it's about a consistent, relaxing wind down routine. Trying something once is not consistent. Give it a shot. Give it a real go. Try it a couple times, a week, maybe 2 weeks to see if things start to improve, but give it the chance.
Try again. We have to go to break here to pay some bills. I want to cover more of this. This is great information, but we do have to go to commercial break. We're talking with Dr. Joe Derjevsky. We're talking to Dr. Joseph Derjevsky. He's the Vice President of Research and Scientific Affairs at the National Sleep Foundation. He's got more tips, and we've got more to discuss regarding how to get a good night's sleep. That's something that all drivers really want to know. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show on tncradio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up. TNCradio.live is proud to carry the Steve Summers Overnight Drive Show. TNCRadio.live is dedicated to commercial drivers. We offer the news, traffic, and weather you need, and the entertainment, sports, talk, music, and celebrity interviews you want to hear 24/7. We have original shows and trucker podcasts that feature some of your favorites, like Ice Road Alex Debogorski and America's Truckin' Sweetheart Marcia Campbell. TNCRadio.live is convenient and designed for professional drivers. The best part is we're free, and you can listen anywhere you are on the road. With just one tap, you can tune into Steve Summers and us right on your phone. Simply download our app by going to app.tncradio.live. That's app.tncradio.live. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kirk, and we're talking with Dr. Joe Drowsy. He's the Vice President of Research and Scientific Affairs at the National Sleep Foundation. Got some great tips and information for us. In our previous segment, we were talking about some of the tips on how to get a good night's sleep and some of the tricks that different drivers use to get sleep when they're on the road. Tom, you said you also wanted to mention something about mattresses.
Well, to finish up what we were talking about the last segment, the other thing that I'd also suggest is try something for maybe 2 weeks to a month, then stop and see if you notice any changes. Because if you don't notice any change, you know it wasn't working. But sometimes when you stop something like that, you'll realize how effective it was, because you're like, wait a second, I'm not, that was kind of like with me with the headphones. When I stop playing the music for a while, wait a second, I'm not falling asleep the way I was. What did I change? Oh, I'm not listening to my music or whatever it is that I'm listening to. So that can be helpful there. But I think one of the concerns a lot of drivers have, Dr. Joe, is mattresses and pillows. I mean, if you look at the mattresses that most trucks come with, or a lot of trucks come with, that's probably one of the drivers' biggest complaints, is that they're uncomfortable. They tend to wear out quickly. Then you start getting poked by springs and all other kinds of things, and they're just not comfortable. And you hear some drivers go, oh, mattresses don't really make a huge difference, and other drivers swear that they do. Do mattresses and pillows matter? And if so, how do you know you've got a good one, or how do you know a good one's went bad?
Yeah, these are excellent questions, Tom. And as you were talking, I made a little amendment to one of our nighttime tips that we might just have to make a change on our own website. We'll see. When I originally gave the third nighttime tip, I said, make your bedroom environment conducive to sleep, keep it dark, cool, and quiet. Now I'm thinking it needs to say dark, cool, quiet, and comfortable. Because if you're not physically comfortable, you're not going to get a good night's sleep, right? I think that just makes logical sense to most people out there. And that physical comfort obviously comes with it, things being cool, but you want your body to be well supported. You want your head and neck to be well supported. I'm not going to sit here and tell everyone that I am I am a sleep expert, but I am by no means a mattress or pillow expert. But I do need to stress the fact that the comfort, the support, the temperature of them, your ability to move unencumbered, all these sorts of things. And again, to try to have it mimic your home environment as best as possible, again, with the idea that your body will know it's time for sleep then, right? Because it knows it's time to sleep at home. So if you can, maybe the mattress is horrible, but maybe you can get a similar sheet. And even though the mattress isn't the same size at home, maybe you could wrap it around and tuck it in so that it has that same skin feel. Something like this. Again, as comfortable as possible, given the restrictions, and as familiar and as sleep kind of indicating as possible as you can have, I think are certainly great. But Tom, I would love to hear more about the struggles of the mattress that's there. And if you're aware, our mattress manufacturers, do they have mattresses that fit inside of big semi trucks? Do they have ones that are supportive, or is there even a market, or are they aware that there's a market?
The answer to all of your questions is yes. There are some better known companies such as Purple and other that do basically make some truck mattresses or an extra long like dorm twin mattress that will fit in many trucks. But there are a bunch of specific companies out there. Minimizer's one. I think Sleep Dog, big rig mattress company. I think the Denver Mattress Company still makes a trucking mattress as well. and they come in all different types of styles and hardness, firmness levels, from ones that are very firm to ones that are less firm, depending on your preference. I've discovered I like a really firm mattress, but you know I was one of the ones that kind of always, and I tried some of the tricks like using mattress toppers on the mattress, which works to a point. But when a mattress starts getting worn out, there's only so much you can do to make it a little more comfortable. And you can usually tell when your mattress is getting worn out, at least from my experience, when you wake up of a morning more sore than you did after a full day of driving. That's usually a sign your mattress is causing you problems. You're probably, in my case, when I switched to a brand new mattress, my back pain, a lot of other aches and pains went away. And all of a sudden, I realized I wasn't as tired because I wasn't waking up in pain every morning.
Oh, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I love that tip and I love that suggestion. And I couldn't agree with you more. Sleep is a process through which your body is supposed to restore and you're supposed to feel better afterwards, right? Here's a nice analogy that I heard recently. If you went to a restaurant and you left hungry, you're not likely to go back to that same restaurant, right? So if we do something at night and we wake up unsatisfied, we probably shouldn't go back to the same thing the next night.
Exactly. And that, and sometimes for drivers, particularly if you're a company driver, you might be limited on your options for mattresses, depending on the company, either what they provide or even if they'll let you provide your own. But, and there's options out there at a variety of price points, from, halfway affordable to, out of this world. So, it's one of those things where, and I've heard drivers say, well, I'm not going to spend $1,000 on a truck mattress. But, okay, a couple of things to look at is, one, you'll spend a couple $1,000s on a mattress at home that you may almost never sleep on. So that's one thing to keep in mind. A lot of drivers like myself spend more time in our truck than we do on our mattress at home. Number two, our mattress is just not our bed. It's our couch, it's our chair, it's a lot of different things. So having a good mattress that can function for a variety of roles is kind of handy as well. But here's the other thing is, if you're sleeping better, you're going to feel more rested. And if you're feeling more rested, that can help your overall health, but it can also keep you being less fatigued. So I guess the question that I'm going to ask you is, as a driver, are you worth it?
I think that's a critical question. And I just did some quick math on a calculator, not in my head. But I wonder if you ask the driver who has a horrible back pain if they would pay $25 today not to feel that pain. They say yes. 40 days in a row, that's $1,000.
Yep. Well, and the thing is a few years ago, my back pain had got kind of out of control. And don't get me wrong, a new mattress had helped it, but I had to start seeing a chiropractor. And about $500 to $800 later, I had my back fixed, where it wasn't bothering me anymore. But if I had probably got to that new mattress sooner, done maybe 3 or 4 chiropractor visits, I would have saved me a whole bunch of money on that. But the thing is for whatever reason, and I'm guilty of this, guys, I was more willing to spend money on massage therapy and chiropractics and things like that than I was to get a good mattress.
Yeah, and what's something that stuck out to me, and I think a different perspective to take is, you spend all the money on the chiropractor. That's one thing, but there's the other side of it that you could have saved money, but you could have also saved all that time while you were in pain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To me, that's probably worth
Quality
more
of
than
life.
money.
Yeah.
And like I said, and since I have the good mattress now, yeah, I still see the chiropractor, but instead of seeing her 2 or 3 times a week from several months at a time, I maybe see her once every 4 to 6 months. So it's more of a maintenance thing. So that is something to kind of keep in mind on some of that stuff. Is it's not saying that a good mattress for good night's sleep is going to solve every problem that you have, but it could reduce some of the problems that you've had.
Sure.
But just like everything, your mileage may vary.
That's right.
Yeah. Right.
Pun intended.
So Dr. Joe, you said you had a poll with some stats on drowsy driving too.
Yeah, I'd love to share our poll results. So, in anticipation of Drowsy Driving Prevention Week this year, the National Sleep Foundation, we conducted a brand new national poll of over 1,000 U.S. adults. And, I found some of the key findings pretty striking. So I just wanted to share and maybe get thoughts and opinions on it. The very first thing that kind of stuck out to me is we asked not drivers, but adults, just general adult population, how risky they think drowsy driving is. And nearly universally, 95%, in fact, came back and said, hey, drowsy driving, highly risky behavior, extremely risky or highly risky, 95%. So that's as close to 100 as you're going to get in any sort of national poll. Now, the problem is, though, that, despite everyone agreeing that it's a very risky behavior, 6 in 10, 62%, so 6 in 10 drivers still admitted to having driven a car or a vehicle when they were so tired they had a hard time keeping their eyes open. So not just yawning, they had a hard time keeping their eyes open. When you do the math on this, 62% of drivers, that's 150 million adults in the US, have admitted to driving when they were so tired that they had a hard time keeping their eyes open. So this big gap between we all think it's risky, but the majority of us are still doing it, I thought was quite striking.
Yeah. It's
one of the
amazing.
things
Go ahead, Tom.
One of the things I want to point out is, drivers see this all the time firsthand, whether it's maybe an experience we have or talking to friends. And but one of the things is I want to encourage drivers, share this episode of particularly when it comes out on the podcast with your friends, because it's all too often we see other drivers out here who are driving all manners of vehicles, whether from big trucks, RVs, all the way down to mopeds or bicycles that are acting like they're drowsy. So yeah, this is the kind of thing where, hey, we can share some of our expertise as professional drivers and what we see out there that's causing some of these problems. So I think that's something that is very important to do as well, is to, hey, it's that, because drivers, we've got a whole term for basically driving too tired. And Doc, I'm not sure if you've heard of seeing the black dog.
Yes, I remember hearing that.
And
the black dog.
The
black
black
dog.
dog.
Oh, dog. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And that is a superstition that a lot of drivers have, and I am one of those who truly believe in that. That if you're going down the road and you basically see a black dog along the side of the road or standing in the road, it's warning you that you need to pull over and get a nap. Otherwise, something bad is going to happen, usually resulting in a fatality event of some nature. Other drivers will talk about seeing elephants dancing on the pink elephants on the hood of their truck, or various other things that they know wasn't there. And more often than not, most drivers, as soon as they see something like that, they listen to it, find the first place they can pull over and get a nap. But there is this whole legend of the black dog, and it's it's been more than just truck drivers. Motorcyclists have that legend as well, and other things. But
Sure.
but it's like I say, it's this whole legend or superstition. Yeah. And I'm not one big on a lot of superstitions, but that is one that I really do pay attention to. And I'm lucky I've never seen it, but I've had a few friends who have had, and I kind of yell at them, you need to go sleep for a few hours now.
That's right.
I'm going to tell you, it could just be the time of the year that we're just, 2 days removed from Halloween, but I got a little bit of, hair standing up on my back of my neck when you were talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yep. And the thing that is, without going into too much detail, I think every driver out here knows of a friend, whether it was a truck driver or someone else, that passed away because they were driving too tired.
Yeah.
Something bad happened or whatever. It's a reality that happens. When you drive the millions of miles that a lot of us do, or the thousands and thousands of miles that a lot of drivers do, meet all the people that you do.
Yep.
You've got a good chance of meeting somebody who's going to be in that situation. And it's one of the things that I know upsets me and my friends the most. We hear about an accident, it was caused by somebody driving tired. because it may be the most preventable of them all.
It truly is, which is why we're featuring this. I hate to interrupt, but we do have to go to break here. We're talking with Dr. Joe Drowsy. He's the Vice President of Research and Scientific Affairs at the National Sleep Foundation. Some really good information on drowsy driving, tips on how to get a good night's sleep, and of course, the importance of getting a good night's sleep. You're listening to the Truckers Network radio show here on TNCRadio.live. Stay tuned for more coming up. Great leaders challenge their people not to stop at the first right answer. Tighten the Lug Nuts is the book that will help you move past that first right answer to be more effective, more productive, and more successful. This book serves as a blueprint that can be easily applied by leaders, entrepreneurs, truckers, owner-operators, all of us in our everyday lives. This is one of the best leadership books you can read to help you accelerate towards your personal and professional goals. Plus, a portion of the proceeds will be donated to truckerschristmasgroup.org. Visit TightenTheLugNuts.com to order your copy today. Welcome back to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. I'm Shelley Johnson with Tom Kirk. We're speaking with Dr. Joe Drowsy. He's the Vice President of Research and Scientific Affairs at the National Sleep Foundation. We've been covering a lot of great information. Dr. Joe, you said you had another statistic, and you also wanted to emphasize, whether people know it or not, drowsy driving is indeed impaired driving.
Yes, thank you for helping me with that, Shelley. It is drowsy driving, as you said, is impaired driving. Drunk driving, drugged driving, distracted driving are all forms of impaired driving, and so is drowsy, right? They're all, have very, very dire and severe consequences. So making that crystal clear is important. The other stat that I just want to leave us with, and something for us to ponder a bit, is that in our survey, we asked drivers how confident they were in their driving ability under certain sleep durations. And something that I think I found pretty shocking was 18%, so nearly 2 out of every 10 drivers had high confidence in their ability to drive with 0, 1, or 2 hours of sleep in the preceding 24 hours. These are levels of sleep in which you should not be driving. You just should not. Now, everyone said drowsy driving is a risk factor, but then you have 2 out of every 10 people saying, but I can do it with no sleep, which again, to me, just screams that there's a problem here, right?
Yes. It's amazing what people say. Gee, look, Mom, no hands, right?
Exactly. Or you shouldn't do it, but I can do it.
Right.
No,
We have
Shelley,
about a
it's
minute
look, Mom,
left.
no
Where is your website, Dr. Joe?
Thank you. Thank you for asking. I didn't want to forget that. I encourage all listeners today to visit our website at theNSF.org. That's THENSF.org. I want to remind everyone that there is only one National Sleep Foundation, and we have been the trusted voice of sleep health for over 30 years. Again, please, please, please visit our website at theNSF.org for more tips on how to be your best slept self and additional valuable information on drowsy driving prevention.
Awesome. And if people have questions, can they reach out to your organization?
They certainly can. We have a contact us feature on our website. A lot of those get filtered directly to me, and I'd be happy to communicate with people.
Wonderful. This has been great information. I really appreciate you being on the show, Dr. Joe. We've been talking with Dr. Joe Drowsy. He's the Vice President of Research and Scientific Affairs at the National Sleep Foundation. Definitely don't drive drowsy, and consult with their website. They've got some great information there. You've been listening to the Truckers Network radio show on TNCRadio.live. Stay tuned for more great programming coming up. Thank you for listening to another great interview on TNCRadio.live and the Truckers Network radio show. All of the material you hear on TNCRadio.live, on our website, our broadcasts, or our podcasts are copyrighted. There can be no distribution without the express consent of TNCRadio.live and its partners. For inquiries, write us at info@tncradio.live. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast of the Truckers Network radio show.